It's apparently the new Washington standard. With any budget talks will come the threat of government shutdown. And this time, Donald Trump says he's ready, willing, and actually seems excited to follow through.
I am proud to shut down the government for border security. I will be the one to shut it down. I'm not going to blame you for it. The last time you shut it down, it didn't work. I will take the mantle of shutting down.
Okay. Trump met today with Democratic leaders Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer just this afternoon, in front of cameras, by the way, telling them he'll refuse to sign a budget bill if it does not include at least $5 billion in funding for his border wall. But that's not looking likely from the Democrats.
If he sticks to his position for a $5 billion wall, he will get no wall and he will get a shutdown. This temper tantrum that he seems to throw will not get him his wall, and it'll hurt a lot of people.
Trump needs to sign off on a budget bill by next Friday to avoid a government shutdown just days before Christmas. And if that doesn't pan out, the president is threatening to find funding somewhere else. He tweeted this morning, if the Democrats do not give us the votes to secure our country, the military will build the remaining sections of the wall. While it's unclear whether that proposal is even legal, we're a far cry from just a few months ago when this was still the plan.
In the end, Mexico's going to pay for the wall. I'm just telling you.
Joining me are Joanna Weiss. She's editor of Experience magazine at Northeastern University. Good to see you, Joanna.
Hi.
Charlie Chieppo is a senior fellow at the Pioneer Institute and former policy director, for Governor, now Senator-elect Romney. Good to see you, Charlie. So Sarah Huckabee Sanders called this a constructive meeting, and without respect, if you weren't depressed about the state of our government before watching these 17 minutes, you had to be after. Am I alone in this or no?
I mean, it was amazing theater. It was highly entertaining for people watching. But no, it didn't give you a lot of faith in the effectiveness of negotiations. Although Donald Trump afterward, the president said, oh, actually, believe it or not, we had a really good productive meeting. I mean, Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer looked absolutely shell-shocked. I don't think they expected to be in front of the press. They didn't expect to be having this debate. It's not the correct medium for either one of them. I mean, these are, particularly Pelosi is an amazing behind-the-scenes deal maker. In front of the cameras, it's not her arena, and the president knows that.
Well, that's the most positive review I've heard of today. What was your reaction to the 17 minutes?
Well, my reaction actually was similar. My reaction was that they clearly were not ready to be in front of cameras and things like that. But it was such a microcosm of the way things operate that Trump was ready for that, and he was ready for the theater piece of it, but he immediately just got pinned on all of the facts and all of the substance and backed himself into saying things he shouldn't have said.
What do facts and substance have to do with the deal?
Well, but in other words, he was totally not...
That was a joke.
Yes.
Here's a little more from this...
But you're right.
You missed that. Here's a little more from the 17-minute tete-a-tete.
Elections have consequences, Mr. President.
Let me just say.
That's right. And that's why the country is doing so well.
What the president is representing in terms of his cards over there are not factual. We have to have an evidence-based conversation about what does work.
One thing I think we can agree on is we shouldn't shut down the government over a dispute. And you want to shut it down. You keep talking about it.
The last time, Chuck, you shut it down.
No.
And then you opened it up very quickly. And
20 times.
I don't want to do what you did.
20 times you have called for, I will shut down the government if I don't get my wool.
Let's summarize here. Trump's saying the same thing over and over and over again. You say he's prepared. Maybe he was. Chuck Schumer, we just heard calling it in public a temper tantrum. And then Nancy Pelosi goes back to a caucus of Democrats and says the following. It's like a manhood thing for him, talking about the president, as if manhood could ever be associated with him. The wall thing. The press is all there. Chuck is really shouting out, I was trying to be the mom. I can't explain it to you. It was so wild. It goes to show you get into a tinkle contest with a skunk, you get tinkle all over. Yeah,
That's the best line I've ever heard from her. I love that.
I mean, really, what is that? Like, if there's a normal person watching any of this, I don't mean here, but hopefully there are, stepping back, watching the public thing, reading about what Pelosi said, hearing Chuck Schumer, the leader of the Democrats in the Senate, on the White House lawn, what do you come away with? This is like the gang that couldn't shoot straight.
I mean, again, I think this is how the country is divided, right? What you're defining as a normal person, I probably would count myself as someone who expects the government to comport itself in a certain way, is going to look at that.
People act sort of like grown-ups.
And people act sort of like grown-ups, and is going to look at that, and you're right, be appalled. But there are people who are in Trump's base who are frustrated with government, who want to see something different, who he knows are, so excited about that border issue. I mean, he has calculated that no matter what he says and how factual and truthful it is, he is going to win with his base on that issue.
GOP poll, the Marist NPR PBS poll, November 28th to December 4th. GOP voters, 65% support shutdown over wall funding. 65%. Well, do they care about the truth, though? Do you see this thing about bottomless Pinocchios that the Washington Post started yesterday? Pinocchios used to be just lies by any poet. Bottomless is when you repeat the same lie more than 20 times and lies about how much of the wall has been built, which is really fencing repair. The amount that it is 86 times by the president. Does anybody care?
Well, no, or the fact that the wall is neither an effective or an efficient way to do border security. It doesn't matter. And I think part of the reason why you see Pelosi and Schumer so flummoxed, not so much on the substance, but on the theater of it, is because, for their entire careers, they've lived in a world where if somebody says something that's crazy and you call them on it, they win. But here, he says things that are crazy all the time, and they call him on it, and nothing changes.
Yeah, but I don't want to give him quite as much credit, because it wasn't so long ago that Chuck Schumer made an offer of 4 times as much federal money for the wall than Donald Trump demanded today, $20 billion in return for a Dreamers deal. So if $20 billion was okay just a few months ago, why is $5 billion not okay today?
Because I think clearly that was what they were willing to do to get the Dreamers. Okay, if the Dreamers aren't,
so why don't they put the same thing on the table today?
I mean, that is a challenge the Democrats have: is that what room do they have to compromise? If they're going to sort of step up and say no way, then that backs them into a little bit of a corner. How do they give a little bit to get?
But it was also a starting position, right, for negotiation. You don't know where they were really willing to go.
But if you start with 4/5 of what the maximum amount the president has ever mentioned, $20 billion. Can we step back for a second? One of the things that amazes me, despite that polling data you and I talked about, the Democrats crushed the Republicans in the House of Representatives, and the discussion was, at least for a few days, how is Donald Trump and how are the Republicans in Congress going to behave differently? The answer is not at all. How do you explain that?
I mean, I guess, again, he's playing to his base. He understands his people. He understands who he's never going to win, and he understands who he's got to keep excited and charged up. And I think that's what motivates him.
Do you buy that argument?
Well, yeah, but I also don't think we know yet whether it's going to change, not at all. Because one thing we know about Donald Trump is that he's not great at planning. Okay? And I think that when he sees the reality of a Democratic House and all that's going to rain down on him, that may cause him to he's not going to stop being himself, but that may cause him to use different tactics than he is right now.
I mean, the other thing about him always is that he wants to divert attention from things he doesn't want people to talk about. He wants to move attention to things that play more in his favor. So this was a great attention-getting day for him. He controlled the agenda. He was talking about the border wall from beginning to end. There's this other investigation going on in the background. No one was talking about that today because they're all talking about these 17 minutes.
Thank God Mexico is going to pay for the whole thing anyway. Charlie, nice to see you. Joanna, pleasure to see you.
Thank you.
See you guys soon.